Going on YouTube, Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be spotlighting the ever so rising pair of Lunala and Koraidon. So we took a short break IRL to take care of a couple of things, but now we are back here on Showdown, and we're back here to do a little bit of team building with Koraidon and Lunala. So this pair is, increasing in usage as of late because it's very favorable into the Zamazenta Calyrex Shadow Rider matchup, because those two, that's like the top meta squad right now. That's the team to beat, okay? And the Sun idea with Koraidon, with some of its Sun partners along with Lunala support, it looks pretty good into that pairing. So you saw the Victory Road tournament over this past weekend. You saw the results there. There was at least quite a few Lunala Koraidon teams, and a lot of them can be built very similarly. There's going to be like one or two flex slots, but overall it's a strong pairing. Remember like Lunala Groudon pairing, aka Luna Dawn? Now we've got a new Dawn to pair Lunala with in Scarlet and Violet, and that is Koraidon over here. And if you recall a little bit of Regulation G, Koraidon has been rising a little bit more as of late, but one of the things that Koraidon teams struggled with in Regulation G was their matchup into the Ice Rider, right? Yes, we do have the Terrifier idea to be able to resist Glacial Lance, but that still wasn't enough because the rest of the team was pretty weak into the Ice Rider, right? So just imagine something like the Flutter Mane idea, okay? Then you had something like Raging Bolt, and then you had the Ogerpon Cornerstone sometimes, okay? And then some other thing, right? And I'll take Lunala off the board for a second. And usually, all right, let's add Chenpao here. And then sometimes you had to have this slot be like your flex slot to be able to deal with the Ice Rider. So we saw something like, Ditto to be able to at least copy the Ice Rider. You could also do something like, we did see Umbreon in the past do that, again, with foul play pressure. We also saw like some makeshift Zamazenta team ideas, right? We saw like, Bastiodon, or we even saw, Hariyama, for example, come onto teams like this. And people were trying a lot of different stuff. I even saw like, Glacier with the Iron Defense body press set. That was also pretty cool in terms of walling out and being able to put pressure into the Ice Rider teams, right? So that was not bad, but overall it still felt a little interesting to try and play that matchup. But now Koraidon's got a new friend here in Lunala, and now Lunala can provide wide guard support, which is great against Glacial Lance. So now you're only forced to really click High Horsepower or some other single target move, and you get to flip the Trick Room upside the Calyrex's head if they are in the Trick Room mode here, right? And then at the same time, you also have, Meteor Beam to be able to pressure it, right? You have the Power Herb idea. So sometimes you can just simply force out a Terra, ideally, if it wants to go Terra Fire to be able to resist the Koraidon Flare Blitz, then you can just, hit it hard later with something like Meteor Beam, right? So, and then, you also have like Moongeist Beam stuff. So, Lunala pretty good, pairing with Koraidon for that reason, because of that wide guard Trick Room support, right? And like we mentioned earlier, you have the favorable idea into the Zamazenta CSR matchup, because again, you have Astral Barrage to stop the, you have the wide guard to stop the Astral Barrage, and then you also pressure the Zamazenta with collision close combat, or even like Flare Blitz in the Sun, right? And then just overall, we talked about this in the Victory Road recap video. This ghost fighting type pairing is really good, because again, if you consider Lunala's weaknesses, for example, the dark types, right? So something like Incineroar, for example, or Chenpao, Urshifu for that matter, then the Koraidon can do well because you have a strong fighting type attack into the dark type, which helps you out a little bit, right? So after this, the photosynthesis partners come, right? As well as something like a Chiyu. I think Chiyu is a strong staple onto these Koraidon Lunala pairings. And even if this was like Calyrex Shadow Rider, I think Chiyu is also still a pretty good pairing into that as well. So now you have another good dark type that has Beads of Ruin next to Lunala to help it do even more damage, and you get to pressure the CSRs even more with something like Dark Pulse and Snarl. So now you essentially have two options, or two ways to really deal with the Calyrex, force it to Terra out of its ghost typing, which means Koraidon can hit it later on if it needs to, right? So this is pretty good too. And then at the same time, you're benefiting from the Koraidon too, because again, in the Sun, you have boosted Heat Wave, you have boosted Overheat, right? And if you don't have Overheat, you probably have Flamethrower. So either way, you have boosted damage in the sun because again, you are a strong fire type, right? And then after this, then you actually add you know, some other secondary options, but I think a lot of these cores are going to start with this, so, you know, Koraidon, Lunala, Chiyu here. And before we get into like full team building, you know, I just want to, you know, display some potential options that you can do with Koraidon, Lunala stuff. So you can easily just add the second ghost type in Flutter Mane, and now even though you do have this second ghost type, because it's not really going to matter a whole lot, because again, their roles are very different. Flutter Mane being a little bit more supportive. You have a fairy type now, which is really good into stuff like, you know, Iron Hands, Urshifu, another Koraidon, for example. And then the Icy Wind with the Focus Sash, again, just gives you options for speed control, you know, because you are going to get the speed boost thanks to, you know, photosynthesis and the sun. And then, you know, with the Sash, you have, you can basically get a second life. You can click it twice if you survive. Then you have ideas, you know, with something like Thunder Wave for another speed control move here, or you can just go Shadow Ball over here, and then this last slot obviously just be, you know, is Protect. So to each their own. If you want to go like double support moves here, you can definitely do that. Moonblast, Thunder Wave, Icy Wind, that's also within the realm. Okay, otherwise, you know, just another single target ghost move with Shadow Ball over here. Okay, and one thing that people often forget about Lunala in terms of, you know, the speed control that it can provide is that not only does it have access to Trick Room, but you also have access to Tailwind, right? And sometimes people forget that we have a global challenge coming up, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if you run into a couple of Lunala Tailwind ideas, okay? And if you don't have Whimsicott, or if you don't have Tornadus here, you know, why not run Tailwind Lunala here, right? You don't necessarily need the Trick Room mode. You can just have a Pokemon here that can, you know, be able to play in the Trick Room matchup. Otherwise, you can just go full on offense here. Just, you know, go with Tailwind Lunala, lead it with, you know, any of these guys, okay? And then you can pressure the Calyrex Shadow Riders even more, or like other things. So that's a possibility, right? And then from here, you could do stuff like, you know, Ogerpon, Cornerstone. Again, that's still like a pretty good Pokemon to have with Koraidon. Again, Sturdy is very, very good. You know, just again, something to pressure fire types, because, you know, sometimes you want to just click Flare Blitz, or, you know, Flame Charge, or a Heat Wave here gets resisted. You know, fire also resists Flutter Mane's, you know, fairy type attack. So we need something to pressure fire types a little bit more. This is where like Ivy Cudgel really comes into play. Another strong physical option, you know, on this team, because right now we've got 3 special attackers here, for that matter, right? So after that, you can also consider another thing that's rising as of late is the mushroom, but the so-called quote-unquote bad mushroom, right? There's no such thing as a bad mushroom. That would be Brute Bonnet, right? And Brute Bonnet, if you looked at the usage stats from the previous Victory Road tour, Brute Bonnet was actually ahead of Amoonguss in usage, which is kind of funny. That's because there was a lot of Koraidon teams, but this is now another Pokemon here that, again, with photosynthesis can definitely benefit from Koraidon, okay? And at the same time, you are a grass and a dark type. So what does that mean? You have Sucker Punch against Calyrex Shadow Riders, right? You're able to resist the Astral Barrage for that matter. You have something like Seed Bomb, okay? If you're up against Urshifu or something like Kyogre, you can click Seed Bomb into that. And then you always have Rage Powder and Spore stuff, right? So you could just sleep things, right? You do, unfortunately, underspeed the Calyrex Ice Rider in Trick Room ideally, right? But that's okay, because again, you can still click Spore if they don't have Grass Terra, and you can always just go Terra Water here, for that matter, and then just, you know, go from there. But this is another Pokemon that has been rising on some of these Koraidon Lunala teams. So that's another way to play it. Otherwise, you can also do something like this where you can retract I'll just retract some of this stuff, right? You can also go with like Instant here along with Roaring Moon, another photosynthesis mon here. So what you can do now is you can have Trick Room here, you have Icy Wind here, but now you can also have Tailwind on the Roaring Moon, and you still have the booster energy, of course, right? So now you have Acrobatics, Knockoff, Tailwind, and Protect. So now remember, imagine this, right? Remember why Roaring Moon has been rising, you know, within Regulation G, and also still being played in Regulation I. It's because of this Dragon Dark typing, okay? You're able to do well into some of the Fire, Water, Grass stuff. Again, just think about Rillabooms, Amoonguses, Urshifus. You know, Roaring Moon can do well there, especially if you already Terra, you know, into the Flying type. You can pressure those even more. Otherwise, you resist the Ogerpon stuff. You can deal big damage into the Ogerpon stuff. And then, you know, just adding Incineroar here, again, fake out pressure to the team. You know, you can do fake out Tailwind, and then, you know, in the Koraidon teams, you're a Fire type, right? So you have boosted Flare Blitz damage. So lots of ways to do this, right? And then fake out Trick Room, you know, with Lunala as well. That's also another good lead with Incineroar stuff. So, you know, you can play it like this if you want. We have seen this other idea with Chiyu, back to Chiyu, and then, of course, the Ursaluna pairing. Okay, this one also, you know, with Trick Room, you can also pivot in your Ursaluna. Sometimes it's a little tricky, right? Because again, you don't have like Parting Shot to go into your Ursaluna after you click Trick Room. But again, ground normal typing, pretty good into CSR, pretty good into Miraidon as well. You have that ground typing, which is nice. You have another Trick Room sweeper, which is pretty cool. You can go. This is why some of them go Terra Water as well. Again, resist Glacial Land stuff, resist Urshifu Surging Strikes. We've, again, things that are rising. And then you just have something like Brute Bonnet here. Can do well, okay? And even something like a Ditto is also used here, right? Because again, with Ditto, you can just copy another restricted. You can copy a Calyrex, free restricted, and then just go from there, right? The only thing is when you have Ditto and Flutter Mane here, they both want a Sash, right? So you kind of have to pick and choose who's going to get a Sash here. If you stay Sash on the Flutter Mane, we've seen something like Shell Bell on this Ditto. You can also do something like, you know, Rocky Helmet Ditto. I've seen that a couple times, but also I think Covert Cloak Ditto is also just pretty good. It's another way to use it, and I think it makes a lot of sense here because if you can go Covert Cloak here, then you can still go back to the Brute Bonnet and then put Rocky Helmet over here. So I think this is like another way to also build this. Okay, otherwise you can also just do like Indeedee stuff. I think Indeedee is another good 5th option here. And then now you also have ideas for expanding force if you want to go that direction, and then just have a, you know, pretty good strong spread move. Otherwise you get another redirector with Follow Me, and then you have another Pokemon with Trick Room here. And if you want, you don't have to put Trick Room on this anymore. You could just put Protect here, or you can just go with 3 attacks with Expanding Force, right, along with the Indeedee over here, and just rely on Indeedee trying to flip the Trick Room for, you know, for yourself. And at the same time, you get terrain control against Miraidon teams, right? So, you know, you could bring Koraidon, Lunala, and Indeedee to those Miraidon games, right? And then the last one is just up for grabs depending on what they have. But you can definitely do something like this and then run something like Brute Bonnet again, or you can run something like another Ditto for that matter. There's lots of flex slots here that you can have into this, right? So hopefully, oh, and then again, so sometimes you can also still run Raging Bolt here. You know, Raging Bolt has seen a bit of a decrease in usage because this was often like the flex slot that, you know, on a lot of different teams because it was so balanced in terms of what it was supposed to do. But now that slot is taken over by a restricted, right? So now you can just replace Raging Bolt with a restricted and it still works. But you can still play Raging Bolt on these Koraidon teams. Again, Photosynthesis is really good. You can have an Assault Vest here, you know, with something like Electro Web for a little bit more speed control, along with the Icy Wind support, right? You can do that. Of course, you have Thunderclap Pressure, and, you know, Draco Meteor. Okay, and then from here, maybe like something like Thunderbolt. And then this is still like fine, right? So if you want to play it like this, you can definitely play it like this too. I think it still makes sense if you want to go this variation, right? But anyway, Raging Bolt can still be good, but a little bit unfavored at the moment for some other options, namely Brute Bonnets, the Dittos, the Ursalunas, and, you know, for good reason, right? But it is still very much within the realms of being playable onto these Koraidon teams, okay? But you can always just do, like, you know, Flutter Mane Chiyu leads. These are really, really good. Deal a bunch of damage, get speed control early, and then let Lunala Koraidon come in and pivot, or just come in on free switches and then, you know, help you finish the job for that matter, right? So anyway, now what I want to do is, now that we've explained some of these options and some of the ideas that you can do with Koraidon and Lunala, now let's build some teams, okay? So this way you can have some options and some ideas to use with this pairing. Okay, we'll start with this variant here with Chiyu, Flutter Mane here. And I just like this 4. I think this 4 are always like pretty solid altogether. Then we can just easily add the Brute Bonnet here, and then after that I'll add the Ditto. So this will be our first variant for our Koraidon Lunala team building. And you know, again, with the sash being on the Flutter Mane, I think I will still opt for the Covert Cloak on the Ditto here. You know, it's still pretty useful. Otherwise, you can just put Shell Bell here, but we're definitely putting Rocky Helmet onto the Brute Bonnet here. Otherwise, you can always just put like a booster energy over here, or you can put Covert Cloak here. But I think it just makes sense to have a Rocky Helmet on this, right? So with Koraidon here, again, pretty standard set. We're gonna go Flare Blitz, Flame Charge. Oh my goodness, I can't get my flames and my flares. Okay, and then of course we're gonna go Close Combat here. Okay, this is like the pretty standard set right now. Again, Close Combat having a little bit more base power than the Collision Course, okay, which allows you to pick up a lot of KOs, right? Especially against Incineroar. Even after -1, you can just Close Combat it and it just dies, right? So, a couple ways to do this. You can just go like a standard Jolly set and just do something like this. Otherwise, you can still do like Max Speed Adamant, drop this attack a little bit, right? Put a little bit of Life Orb optimization, and then these 32 EVs, you can put them wherever you want. You can put them a little bit into Spadef like this, and then that's it, right? So to each their own, but I like Jolly just so that, you know, you can pressure Miraidon teams a little bit more, or play it a little bit more comfortably, because a lot of the times the Miraidons are just modest, so I kind of like just being able to outspeed it and potentially KOing it with the Close Combat after a little bit of chip. Okay, before Terra. Lunala here, so we can go Moongeist Beam, Meteor Beam, Wide-Guard, and then just simply Trick Room here. I think this is pretty solid. I think Terra Water is really good. Again, for Kyogres, for Urshifus for that matter, especially if they want to go like Stellar Urshifu Surging Strikes here, and if you don't have the Sun at that moment, still pretty fine. Then you can just Terra Water and still lift the tail to tail. I still like Chiyu here with the Choice Scarf. I think this is pretty good. Again, you know, with just Dark Pulse, Overheat, Snarl, Heat Wave. You can do something like this. If you want to go Flamethrower, you can definitely do Flamethrower. I do like Terra Ghost. You don't have you don't have Indeedee here. Okay, so you're a little bit more prone to Fake Out, but this is why you have the Terra Ghost option. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to try and Terra the Chiyu, but that's because these guys are always going to want to Terra most of the time. But there are situations where you can just Terra the Chiyu, and that can just overall win you the game here, right? Then the Flutter Mane, I like Terra Normal right now. I think it's very popular, just because, again, with the support that you can have against the Calyrex matchup where they can't touch you, you know, for the Astral Barrage, and then also into Lunala, they can't hit, you know, Moongeist Beam. I think that's also pretty good. Then Icy Wind, then Shadow Ball here, and then just Protect. And then again, like I said, you can go for Thunder Wave if you like that idea. If you really want to, yes, you can definitely do it. The Brute Bonnet here, you know, Rage Powder, Spore, not Pollen Whip, Seed Bomb, and then Sucker Punch over here. At least you have some priority move, right? And then Terra Water is also pretty solid. Ditto here, you can just keep it as it is. And we do want the Impot, and then just being able to at least click Transform. I think this is always like pretty good. So that's it. That's like our first variation here, right? So now if we just slap on a little bit more EVs, so this is what you can do here. I think I'll start here with the Flutter Mane. This is the easiest one. Same thing with the Ditto here. Flutter, you can just easily go Timid 252, 252 and call it a day. And then same thing with the Ditto. Couple ways to really EV it, right? I think I just went with Relaxed Nature just so that I can copy a Calyrex, you know, when the time comes, right? And then just, you know, go from there. But this is what I was doing with Ditto, and it was totally fine. The Brute Bonnet here. So I went with Impish, right? So now you're going to get a defense boost in the Sun. But I went with 252, 196, just because, you know, this calc is for a few things. One, it survives Zamazenta Body Press, right? With Impish Body Press Max, right? Without necessarily needing the Photosynthesis buff, right? So you don't need the defense buff to survive that. You also survive Glacial Lance pretty well. And if you have the defense buff already, then you can survive a +1 Glacial Lance, which is kind of cool already. Chenpao, you easily live the Ice Attacks. Now, if it is that Life Orb variant, you can still live the Jolly Icicle Crash Chen-Pao if it is Life Orb, right? You have that roll. Ice Cold Crash, a little bit more of a roll, but it's still a more favorable roll in your favor as well. Same thing with Urshifu Close Combat. You also live that very, very well. And you know, if you want, you can always just Terra it, but those are the calcs that I was aiming for that. And then after that, I just, you know, rounded out here, just dump the rest into Spadef with 1 point into the attack and into the speed stat here. And then after that, what do I have left? Okay, I've got Lunala here. So I went with a modest set, you know, just for going modest 180 here. Again, this is the bump here for Lunala, modest nature. And then, of course, it's a nice even number for powered meteor beam. And again, if you're trying to get better at competitive Pokemon, if you're trying to learn how to EV your Pokemon, and if you don't know what EV bumps are, make sure you comment in the video below asking what are EV bumps. I will reply and respond to you because it's a very fundamental skill to understand when you're doing EVs for your Pokemon. Otherwise, if you look in the video description below, you can watch our video titled What Are EVs or How to Optimize EVs. We have a whole video going through this stuff slowly one by one with examples. You can give that a watch. Otherwise, ask what are EV bumps and I will respond to you. All right, after this, I just like going 220 HP investments. This is enough for, you know, if they want to bring out Rillaboom for grassy terrain recovery, this is optimal for that because, again, it's a factor of 16. Then I put about 92 speed on this Lunala just to be able to outspeed like Pelipper's, especially that are the ones that are timid. And then after this, these are just like leftover EVs. So this is the EVs that I was testing with Lunala. However, you can also do stuff like this where you can go a timid Lunala, okay? And let me tell you why. Let me reset these EVs for a second. You can go, I think about 149. Let me do like a little bit of quick math here. 224 divided by 1.5, just you know, for the Icy Wind stuff. Yeah, I was right. So you can do stuff like this. You can even just push it to 150 here. So after Icy Wind, you can outspeed something like a Calyrex Shadow Rider, right? And then just be able to click Moongeist Beam, you know, especially after its sash has been broken, you know, when you click that. You can definitely do it like that. And then from here, you can just max out your special attack. And then from here, these are just like your leftover EVs. And this also still works out because, again, 224 is still a factor of 16 for Rillaboom Grassy Terrain Recovery. And then just put 1 point into the defenses, right? So you can definitely do something like this if you really want to. Otherwise, you can also just take 1 point off here, again, for the power boost, and then just put this somewhere. You can also just put it in speed, again, if you really want to. Or you can put one more into the Spadef or into the defense. Either way, I'm giving you options in terms of speed, right? Other than that, you can also go a little bit more speed, right? Here, I'll show you this, where you can go about 157, right? And then this is enough to outspeed Kyogres, right? Especially the timid ones. So that's also pretty cool. And then after that, you can just dump the rest here once again into special attack, put 1 point there, into the defense, and now you just round out the rest of your EVs here, right? And this is another Lunala set that you can run, right? If you want to outspeed Kyogres and be like pretty fast as well, this is another way to do that, okay? So a couple options, and then or you can just go super slow and just go super bulky, and you know, to heck with all this speed, right? You can go a little bit slower here and still go back to modest. You can do something like this, right? I think this is still like okay. Or you can just have like no speed and then just do something like this, right? Where you go like 196, 198, and then you can just dump the rest into HP like this, right? You can go 240, and then again, these 80 EVs, you can just dump this into defense, and then this is like another bulky Lunala set, right? So, you know, depending on how you want to play it, you know, go for it. You know, those are like a couple of spreads that I've given you here. Otherwise, we'll just go with the one that I was testing with this particular team. I was going modest 180, 220 over here, and then I was putting, you know, more speed investment here, again, just for like the Pelipper stuff. Okay. After that, we've got Chiyu here. So a couple things you can do with Chiyu. You can just easily just do this, right, and call it a day, or you can go modest 116 and put a little bit more investment into your bulk here. And the whole idea with this is you can survive Urshifu with the sun. Okay, which is pretty cool, right? So if you want to do it like that, you can definitely do it like that. Otherwise, you can just easily just max it out and, you know, just go from there. But if you like the Chiyu to have a little bit more bulk, here it is. All right, Flutter Mane we've already done, Brute Bonnet we did, and Ditto we did as well, right? So this is like already one type of team that you can do, okay? So again, you have some balance ideas here. Of course, you have redirection support, you have Spore, okay? you have speed control with Icy Wind and Trick Room, okay? And Koraidon can also give itself some speed control with Flame Charge over here, right? So you can definitely do something like this and, you know, still do relatively well here. So let's do some test games with this and let's see how it does. Okay, so this person is running Calyrex Ice Rider and Dialga and an Incin for graph stuff. You know, if this was Dynamax, this is looking pretty good, right? Dialga is really strong in Dynamax, but this is not Dynamax. So I'm very interested as to why we're running the Dialga here alongside the Calyrex here. But other than that, I like Koraidon Chiyu here in pretty much every case because the Chiyu does a lot into everything here, right? We can snarl the special attackers, we can blow up the Calyrex and even the Ogerpon or force it to Terra. And then at the same time, you know, with our Koraidon, we can pressure the Incin, we can pressure the Calyrex, we can pressure the Dialga too. And then in the back end, we can always use our Ditto to copy his Calyrex if we think we can get a free copy of a restricted, or especially if it has a boost already, we can do that. Otherwise, Lunala also looks pretty good, you know, just depending on how we want to use it. But other than that, I love what we got here. So just to show you this game, he does lead the Dialga Incin, very classic Sword and Shield lead, right? Especially if you can Dynamax this and pivot or set up Trick Room. I know that's what he wants, but he can only fake out one thing here, and I'm going to make him choose. Either way, I'm going to always attack the Dialga here with the fighting move or the fire move. So he chooses the Koraidon, which means we blow up the Dialga with the overheat, right? So Chiyu already has great benefit here next to Koraidon. We blew up the Dialga. Here comes Ogerpon now. This is fine. We can go into Lunala here, okay? And we just go for the Incin. He doesn't even redirect, right? So you see at -1, we still pick up the Incin with the close combat. We've seen that before in Regulation G. And now we've already taken out 2 Pokemon in 2 turns, right? So now here comes the Calyrex, which we can easily copy right now into Ditto, or we can, you know, just let him kill it, give him the +1, and then we get the free switch into our Ditto, and then we copy the +1. Otherwise, this is a Terra Lunala here. I always want to click Muni Beam and force the Ogerpon to click redirection, but he didn't, right? He wanted the Chiyu kill. Very interesting. That was never going to kill anyway. But it's free damage into Calyrex, right? You know, again, like I said, we could have let him get the Koraidon for free and then just copy with Ditto. Next turn, he clicks Horn Leech. He gets rid of the Lunala. It was already full, but now we have Glacial Lance. That's already doing more than half. And now we just bring in Chiyu and the game is over, right? So we can take out whatever we want here. We take out the Calyrex, okay, the Ogerpon. He can click Ivy Culture. You see, it didn't even KO, so you know that from the first time. And now the Glacial Lance just cleans up. So our Ditto ends up being the cleaner in this case, right? And this is exactly what I was talking about. You can use the Ditto and copy the restricted, namely the Calyrex Ice Rider, to improve that Trick Room matchup. Even though he technically didn't even go for Trick Room, he gave me a 3rd restricted, and we were able to use it and win this game. Okay, the mirror matchup, right? So I also wanted to show this game here because, again, you're going to play the mirror, right? So you're going to play probably the same 4 or 5 mons like this, okay? And that last 1 or 2 slots is going to be the flex slot, right? So in this case, he's got the Iron Hands. I've seen this variant before. It has done well at the tournament level, and of course, we have the Ditto here. So we have the option to copy something if we want to bring the Ditto. Otherwise, I do like Flutter Mane here, especially because I'm counting the fairy weaknesses. I'm counting the ghost weaknesses here, right? So he's got Iron Hands, he's got Brute Bonnet, and he's got Koraidon. Okay, that's 3 fairy weaknesses, right? And then at the same time, I have Shadow Ball against Lunala and his own Flutter Mane. So that's more weakness to Flutter Mane. We have the same idea too, okay? So he can also do that to us, but it's just a matter of how we pivot and position our mons here, right? But I like his team. And I think Iron Hands is always going to be like a pretty good mon, especially in the Trick Room matchup against the Calyrex. You know, you can just low kick that thing. But here we go. Let's see how we play this. So he goes with Flutter Mane and he goes with Koraidon. Yes, and we also have the same idea, right? So this is something you also have to understand. You know, you're going to lead the same. You're probably going to have the same Terras. Who's going to click Protect? Who's going to click Icy Wind? Who knows, right? So I'm going to go Terra Fire. So is he. Okay, and he protects his Flutter. Good play for him. I click Icy Wind, and we already get some information. He doesn't get a speed drop, which means he's not Life Orb. He's probably Clear Amulet there, right? So he clicks Flare Blitz. I probably would have just clicked Flame Charge, right? So you can get the speed advantage on your Koraidon there, but he doesn't do that. So now, you know, he pays the price. I get the advantage on the Flutter Mane here. I win the speed tie, which means my Koraidon gets to click Flame Charge, right? So I felt like if he just went for his own Flame Charge, he would have been okay, but he didn't do that. So now he goes into his Chi, which is fine. Also, I'm just gonna switch out into Lunala here. I just click close combat into the Chi. You can't Terra, and I know he can't do that because he Terra the Koraidon here. And he just goes Brawl Flare Blitz into Lunala here. We can take that. We do take a burn, but now he's got his own Lunala here. And this is where he could have won, right? But, and you'll see why, right? Because I click close combat, I get rid of the Koraidon, and I have the speed advantage. But he had Tailwind. You see, I told you, Lunala Tailwind is actually pretty cool here. If he had just protected Koraidon there and just went with Tailwind Lunala, I think he probably just wins, right? Now, I have to double target the Lunala in that case, right? But I didn't. I went for the Koraidon. But if he does do that, then he just wins, right? Because all my mons were tripped, okay? I still had 4 Pokemon there, but he can just easily take out one by one and make all these trades here, right? So I like his team. I think, you know, if he just played it a little bit better, he probably just wins the game against us. But again, Tailwind Lunala looks pretty good on that variant. I'm not going to lie. All right, so for the second variation, let's play this a little bit faster and a little bit more aggressive. So we'll still add Indeedee here, which is, again, a pretty good Pokemon with Lunala. But now we'll forgo the Trick Room here. We'll go Expanding Force. So now we have 3 attacks and White Guard here. And then the Indeedee will have the Trick Room. And this is what happens sometimes when you have the Indeedee Lunala paired together with like another restricted. They'll forgo the Trick Room here and still keep White Guard, but have the Indeedee on the Trick Room itself. And now the reason for this is because now we're going to go with Whimsicott here. So now we're going to go a little bit faster, right? Because now we have Tailwind, we have Moonblast, of course, and we have Light Screen. And Manual Sunny Day is pretty good, right? Because again, when you play against like these Tornadus teams that have Rain Dance, especially like Calyrex Shadow Rider, Zamazenta teams that have Tornadus, Urshifu, they have Manual Rain Dance, they can change that on you. But if you have your own Sunny Day manually like this, then that kind of messes them up a little bit, right? So, and then you don't even need the Sash, right? Because you can just go Covert Cloak on this Whimsicott, but still Terra Dark here, the same way that you would do like Whimsicott on those Miraidon teams. So, after this, what you can do is now you have the option, you know, when you have the speed on your side, you can just go for like these hard-hitting Expanding Forces with Indeedee. You know, you have a good spread move here. And then at the same time, you can change terrain against Rillabooms. You can change terrain, more importantly, against those Miraidon teams for that matter. And then you have another Redirector on your team, which is really good. All right, because now you can just set up yourself or protect your partners from harm's way, right? And then, of course, Whimsicott with Light Screen. That's going to be really good against, you know, Miraidon and Calyrex teams. You know, mitigate all kinds of damage. And then, again, you have the speed control here, right? So if you want, you can also do stuff like this, right? If you go, well, first of all, let me set it up here with the Indeedee. Follow me, all right, Helping Hand, Trick Room. Okay, this last slot here, you can go Alluring Voice with Terra Fairy, which is really good right now, especially with all the Zamazentas, you know, going for their +1s, right? You know, not on the turn that they come out here. Where's the Terra Fairy right here? Or the Calyrexes, you know, picking up KOs and getting boosts. The nasty plots, the swords dances, right? You can just punish all of that with Alluring Voice here, right? So I kind of like this, and this is going to get the Rocky Helmet here. Otherwise, what you can also do is you can have the Shadow Ball Tech, okay? And then that means you don't need Shadow Ball here anymore. Now you can go Thunder Wave here. So now you look at this. You've got Icy Wind, Thunder Wave, Tailwind, Trick Room here, okay? You've got a lot going for you if you want to play the Lunala Koraidon idea like this, okay? So do with it with what you will. I'll go back to Alluring Voice just because that's what I was testing with. And then the Flutter Mane here, I will also go back with Shadow Ball because, again, that's also what I was testing with. So then from here, we can keep a lot of these EVs the same. But what I did want to do with Lunala is, you know, not necessarily put so much speed on it. We can go a little bit slower, a little bit bulkier. And we can just put like maybe 1 or 2 points here on this, right? And then after this, you can still have a ton of bulk here. You still go for like 240 HP investments, still go you know, 198 with the special attack here, but I want a little bit more damage. So what I did, instead of like almost maxing, I just put like 1 point away from that, so this way I still have a nice solid even number for my power boost. These 24 EVs didn't really matter a whole lot now. You can just put 1 point here and then just dump the rest here into defense, and that's really what I was doing with this Lunala here. But after that, the Indeedee, you can just go like a simple Relax Nature set here. You know, just 0 EVs, put it to 176 here for Rillaboom in case they want to come in, and then just dump the rest into defense and a little bit remainder into special defense. And that's your Indeedee set here. All right, this Whimsicott, I'm gonna keep using the same Whimsicott that I've been using in Reg G. All right, I'm gonna go to 169 investment here. This is gonna outspeed Landorus, and then after that, I went with 236 investment, 100 Spadef here. This is enough to take one Miraidon attack here, which is really nice, and also one Astral Barrage from a Calyrex. Then, without the Terra, then I just dumped the rest here into defense. And this is our Whimsicott set that we've been using for a very long time here. But this is it. This is like our second variant. Again, a little bit more aggressive. You've got Whimsicott now. You've got Indeedee. Couple more support options here. All right, and you have all the damage here that you need from Flutter Mane, Chew, and Koraidon, and sometimes Lunala as well. Just clicking expanding force stuff. Okay, so let's show you this variant and let's see how this one goes. All right, so again, here's that Shadow Rider Zamazenta matchup, which again, you do have a favorable matchup into. So now it just depends on the rest of the team here. So there's Tornadus Urshifu, right? That's okay. And then there's Rillaboom, gonna give him terrain, an advantage there, and then he has another ghost type and Flutter Mane over here. So obviously Lunala and Koraidon are going to be your go-tos here, but I also like Chiyu just because Chiyu also matches well into both the Zamazenta and the Calyrex here, right? And then from here, because he has a Rillaboom, I guess you can also opt for the Indeedee just to give yourself the terrain advantage, and then just kind of go from there. So let's see how he leads this. But I like just having my Chiyu, just up front here, just to try and pressure whatever he has with either the Calyrex or the Zam. But he has the Urshifu Tornadus there, so not a great spot for the Chiyu. So I'm just gonna go into Indeedee. I could have also done Koraidon here just to have reduced damage, but I didn't want to take a Bleak Windstorm there, right? So the only choice that I made here was not tearing my Lunala. I forgot to do that, but anytime there's an Urshifu that wants to click Terra and wants to click Surging Strikes, just Terra the Lunala, Terra Water, and be fine here, right? I'm lucky that I was able to live that, but always click the Terra button in that situation. But Expanding Force just wipes him, right? So that was really good. Now we can just Wide Guard here and set up Trick Room on the Indeedee, right? He can't really hit the Indeedee for big damage because, again, Astral Barrage is not even going to hit at all. So now we can just use our Alluring Voice, take out the Tornadus, and then Moongeist Beam into the Calyrex. Now, they're going to be Sash most of the time, which is okay. So you can give him the kill here, which is fine because, again, you have Trick Room up and you can just kill him next turn, with Alluring Voice. Even if he protects, that's not enough because, again, there's 3 more turns of Trick Room here. And the Koraidon also has the advantage if you want to use it like that, right? So I can, just Terrafire the Koraidon. Now, not that it really matters at this point, because you just always has this pin on this Calyrex here. And now the Koraidon pressures the Zamazenta, right? So, again, the Torn Ursh lead, again, just Terra the Lunala, and you have a much easier time here. But now you can just wipe him, right? Because again, Zamazenta doesn't match up well into the Koraidon because there's so many super effective moves into it. Another Shadow Rider Zamazenta team, but look at that one. That one's got like Tinglu and Dondozo, so he's got like Yawn shenanigans with maybe Sanctum, who knows? Could be Stealth Rocks, and then Dragonite Chenpao there for just random E-speed damage. So something like Indeedee could be good here. Otherwise, Lunala Koraidon again, and then probably a Chiyu here, but I could also do some stuff with like Whimsicott here just to, lead Tailwind support and maybe even click Light Screen and whatnot. It really just depends on how I wanted to play this, but I think in the end I went with Whimsicott. So I wanted to do like Whimsicott Chiyu stuff just in case he did lead like Dragonite Chenpao. I could always just like pressure with both slots ideally, but if he led Dondozo Tinglu, then I had to think of something else there, right? So he in fact does lead Dondozo Tinglu. So that means it could be Zamazenta Calyrex in the back or like one restricted and something else, right? So I wanted to just go into Koraidon here just because I didn't want to get nuked by either of these things, right? So just simple Moonblast chip into the Tinglu looks okay. Stealth Rock comes out, Wave Crash, so pretty good turn. So now I can pressure the Tinglu. So this way Lunala and Chiyu could, do some stuff later. So I wanted to just Flare Blitz in case he wanted to switch into something else there, or like I didn't want to click Close Combat just in case he went into the Calyrex. So I played it safe and just doubled into that slot. There's the Yawn, but he actually goes into Chenpao here, which is very interesting. So that means there's only one restricted in the bag. So I had no choice. I had to go into Lunala, otherwise Chiyu gets nuked by Wave Crash. So, and he's actually Shard Chenpao, interestingly enough. And then there is the Wave Crash coming from the Dondozo there. So that was a little unfortunate for my Whimsy, right? But still okay. I have a Chiyu here. I can Terra the Lunala just in case here. So Terra Water looks okay. And again, Ice Shard doing some damage, but not enough to KO. He knows I'm Scarf. So a little bit of Heat Wave. He's actually not Sash Chenpao, right? Which means there's probably a Sash on the Calyrex or potentially something else. Actually, there's nothing else that wants a Sash. It's probably just the Calyrex. But he actually just leaves the Zamazenta behind. I guess he's afraid of the Sun matchup there. So this is just an easy Heat Wave and a double up here. Now, he does click Asha, but I know Lunala does live this. I could have even maybe played it safer just by clicking Wide Guard there and then just, more Heat Wave damage, but I was afraid of missing, so I figured it's just better to attack with both in that scenario. Alright, another variation that you can also consider is this Ursaluna idea that people have been running around. Again, we saw this in Victory Road there, so I understand that there is a Trick Room mode there with Ursaluna and Lunala, the double Luna mode, okay? And then you have an option here like Brute Bonnet. This is already like pretty public, this team is going around, so I won't spend too much time on it, but sometimes it's a little weird to try and get in the Ursaluna because if it were me, I'd probably just put Incin here. So this way, you could do like Lunala Incineroar stuff. And then just, fake out Trick Room and then, Parting Shot into the Ursaluna the following turn. It's just a little bit better just to try and get it in position, with the pivot option from the Incineroar. That's the way I would do it. Otherwise, if you're still comfortable using the Chi-Yu stuff, you can definitely still use the Chi-Yu stuff for that matter, right? So the only thing now is without the Indeedee, you don't need Expanding Force anymore. You can still go for Trick Room here and still keep more or less things the same here. Otherwise, you can also, actually, I can give you like another EV spread here. So you can actually just go the timid route and just go something like this, where you can go, let me take away a lot of this. Let's go 204, right? This 154 speed tier. This is for Kyogre, right? And then after that, you can just pretty much almost max out your special attack here. And then just dump the rest here into HP. For that matter, you can do something like this. And then the Ursaluna, obviously, you can just have the Flame Orb. And then Terra Water, this is for like Urshifu, this is for Calyrex Ice Rider, Glacial Lance, just Earthquake, Facade, okay, and then Headlong Rush, and then just Simple Protect here. Now, you can go Ghost here, you can go Normal here, you can go Water. It really just depends on what you want to do. I think the most popular one is Water, but you can also opt for the Ghost idea just so that, again, the fighting weakness into Urshifu, another Koraidon for that matter, you can always just avoid it in that sense, right? But I do like Water. I think Water is like a pretty solid Terra for Ursaluna at the moment. What you want to do here, again, just go Brave Nature. We'll go 0 speed. We'll optimize the HP for Flame Orb Chip, so that's gonna be 223 HP. Then you can just more or less max the attack here. Let's get it to the third bump there, and then dumping the rest into special defense is like totally fine. The Brute Bonnet here, so you can go Covert Cloak here, you can go Rocky Helmet here. Either way, I think both items are pretty solid. But if you don't really have Protect, if you don't really have the Indeedee there, I think Covert Cloak is still like pretty good. This is what people are running around right now. But what I like to do here, again, just the simple stuff: Rage Powder, Spore, Seed Bomb, and the Sucker Punch. This is what is running around over here. And then the spread itself. So I like 252, 196 here. Again, just because you can survive the Zamazenta Body Press without having the defense Terra. You can survive Close Combat Urshifu. You can survive the Glacial Lance, especially. This is like a very solid build that you can do with the Brute Bonnet. I think Impish is the way to go right now for sure. Okay, and then after that, Flutter Mane can pretty much just stay the same here. Lunala, we put Trick Room again. We don't have the Expanding Force Pressure. The Chi-Yu, yeah, we can just copy paste what we had before, just to save ourselves a little bit of time, for the video. And then the Koraidon, still more or less the same here, the Jolly variant. And yeah, this is pretty much another one that people are using right now. Again, the Brute Bonnet is, with Grass and Dark coverage, that's really good into like Urshifu stuff, really good into Calyrex, pretty good into Kyogre especially. And you can pressure other things, just with priority Sucker Punches, put things in range for KO range for Lunala / Ursaluna stuff. So you can, do stuff like, Rage Powder, Trick Room with Lunala. They kill the Brute Bonnet, then you go into Ursaluna, and then, you can just sweep from there. And then you can click Earthquake Wide Guard, which is always like a funny interaction that you can do. So I like this idea, but it's been running around. So if you like it, great, go for it. All right, so this was a pretty interesting game. So here he's got Miraidon Zamazenta. So he's got a Wide Guard user of his own, But actually Ursaluna matches well into this because again, you can deal a lot of damage into a lot of his entire team, especially like the Miraidon and Ursaluna, both two ground weaknesses there. And then same thing with like the Insane. You could pivot that in, but we have Koraidon, so we're not really afraid of that. If I can set up Trick Room with Lunala, that'd be great. Brute Bonnet also could be pretty good there. I don't have to click Spore, right? I can always just click, Rage Powder and help me set up the Trick Room, so this way Ursaluna can come in and do the job that it needs to do. So we run this here, and I'm basically just leading Lunala and the Brute Bonnet here. So I want to try and set up the Trick Room here. And here's the Whimsicott. So this is fine, right? So he actually just commits the Terra Fairy immediately. So I want to set up Trick Room here. So there's the Light Screen, and there is the Dazzling Gleam. He gets rid of the Bonnet, but that's okay, because now we can just set up the Trick Room here. He set up Light Screen, that's fine. But now he's locked into Dazzling Gleam. So now I can just Wide Guard, and he wants to Encore. I know that. He thinks he can Encore my Trick Room again, but now we can just click Earthquake spam. We get a crit there, but that's okay. So like now my Ursaluna just got free damage, and we have our Flame Orb locked and loaded, and there's still Trick Room. So he goes into the Ditto. He copies my Ursaluna, funnily enough. This is just more Wide Guard support. He goes Encore into Ursaluna. I guess not wanting to click Facade, but this is still like good damage. Look at what that Ditto did. That Ditto did nothing, right? So now, again, I'm just going to keep clicking Wide Guard here. This is fine because I want to keep doing this. I don't want to hurt my own Ursaluna. So like I'm fine by just clicking Wide Guard there. Moonblast chip, that's okay. You know, I think that's better off into the Lunala, but now here comes Zamazenta. And again, he clicks Protect, wants to solve the last turn of Trick Room. I'm going to click Wide Guard again, and I get the free kill onto the Whimsicott. So basically, I've just been spamming Earthquake Wide Guard for, quite a few turns there, and I've already killed 2 mons. So now he has nothing left but his Restricted, and a Zamazenta. Well, actually both is Restricted, right? But here's the thing. Now we can just go into Koraidon here. I want to bait him out for the Miraidon. I want him to lock into an unfavorable move here. So it's Electro Drift, right? So that means if I can get rid of Zamazenta now, then Ursaluna just beats the Miraidon because he can't click anything else into the ground type. So we're faster, we're jolly, and I know that. So now we can just rid the Zamazenta. Okay, the Koraidon dies, but the Miraidon can't damage the Ursaluna anymore. So now we just win because now we can just spam Facade, spam Earthquake, whatever it is. But that was pretty much it. So, the Wide Guard Earthquake is always something that you can take advantage of, and that's kind of how you can play around the Encore Whimsicott. So they want to Encore your Trick Room. If you just Wide Guard first, then you just click Earthquake, and then, he Encores you. But again, Wide Guard Earthquake is still like pretty good, in subsequent turns. All right, this one, he's got a pretty interesting idea here. He's got the Ninetales, Kyurem White, Calyrex Ice Rider idea, and he also has an Indeedee there. So Aurora Veil is a possibility, along with giving his Pokemon some defense boost because of snow, which is okay. Could have Icy Wind, could have Encore, lots of things the Ninetales could have. But this is why your Koraidon and even your Chiyu is also very, very important here. So, very easily you can just go with Lunala and you can go with Chiyu here. You have the Koraidon in the back to pivot in case he leads in the Ninetales. It's Calyrex indeed. That's actually a very good lead for him because I can't really hit the Calyrex all that well yet. So I have to get rid of the Indeedee first. He actually just tears the Calyrex right off the rip there. So Terra Dark Calyrex is something you normally don't see. It's usually something like Fire, Water at least. But here we go. Meteor Beam into the Calyrex. That does a lot of damage, honestly, right? And Crunch does so much. I'm surprised it didn't kill me. I'm very fortunate there. Terra Dark Crunch is crazy. You got the Sneasler there. That's something else. And thankfully we have a Scarf here. We can Dark Pulse that thing, but obviously he actually doesn't even go for the close combat. He just opts to remove the Lunala there. But now we have Koraidon here, so we can pressure the Calyrex, we can pressure the Sneasler here, but I just want to go into Flutter first just to save it for later. Remove the Calyrex first. The Sneasler did not go for any important moves there, but he goes for the close combat into the Chiyu. Very interesting. But there's our Ghost type able to pivot into that. And now we always just pin him here, right? Because now the Kyurem can't do anything anymore. He's already terrored the Calyrex, and now we just remove it with this simple close combat there. So no Ninetales, right? Very interesting. In a game where there's always a weather idea, very interesting to not bring the Ninetales and bring the Indeedee instead. All right, so this one right here, this is a Swordfish game. Very standard Swordfish. Zacian, Kyogre, Tornadus, Ursh, Amoonguss, and then usually that's either like Chien-Pao or Incineroar there. So I like this game just because we both made mistakes here, but we're still able to work our way around it. Okay, so basically, you know, I think Koraidon's just always important into this game, just to be able to pivot and change weather. So he's going with Urshifu and Kyogre rather than the Tornadus here, right? So this is an easy switch to Koraidon because there's no Bleak Wind Storm pressure here. And now he goes into Amoonguss. That's also another interesting call there. Maybe I didn't need to tear the Lunala here, but I was afraid of I guess I'm not really sure what I was afraid of. I think Koraidon switching was like totally fine. So Meteor Beam comes out into the Ursh, a little bit of chip damage, which is still fine. I wanted to like put that in range. It goes back into Kyogre. That's probably the obvious play there, and this is where I make my mistake. I went Flare Blitz, but not double targeting the Amoonguss here. Or I went straight for the Kyogre there. I get a nice crit there, but I think it would have been better to just remove the Amoonguss there because now I get Spored, right? So the Kyogre is still pretty weak, so I wanted to just protect here just in case he wants to Spore, but I think this is just an easy Pollen Puff for him, right? Because I have no way to really remove the Amoonguss, you know, in the rain. So there's the problem. I just have to rely on Lunala being able to wake up and take it out. But he makes the mistake too by not clicking a redirection move, and now he lets me kill the Kyogre for free, right? I think my best bet was to, like, you know, let him, you know, redirect and then hope Lunala wakes up, but he ends up not clicking the redirection move there. No Rage Powder. So now it's a little bit easier because now, you know, the Urshifu does go for the close combat there. That's okay. We live it. He doesn't crit. We wake up and we finally get the Moongeist Beam and we take out the Amoonguss, right? So we're able to compensate for the mistake. So now we can have weather control for the rest of the game. So now here comes Zacian. This is fine because now all we have to do is bring back Koraidon, get the weather back on our side. Flutter Mane gets the boost, outspeeds the Zacian, outspeeds Ursh, and takes out the Ursh because it's already been chipped. It already has the reduction from the CC, and you know, this is the benefit of Sash, right? Behemoth Blade can't kill it. So now easy play here. I know he tears, but that doesn't matter. You just click Icy Wind, and then you can click the Fire move, and then that's it. You know, you're able to outspeed it, and then Koraidon just cleans up with the Flare Blitz there. So I made some mistakes there, but we're able to at least recapitalize it just because our opponent also made some mistakes too. So this next variant actually involves Roaring Moon, like we mentioned earlier in the video. So it's another Photosynthesis Mon, and now you have like a more aggressive Tailwind setter as opposed to something like Whimsicott. And now you have Acrobatics and Knockoff, right? So like, again, Knockoff, and with, you know, with the boost energy without even Tailwind, you're able to outspeed the Shadow Rider immediately and then just pressure it. And then at the same time, you know, the Acrobatics Terra Flying just gets rid of all the Ogerpons, gets rid of Amoonguss. You can even get rid of another Koraidon for that matter too, right? So lots of ideas that you could do with Roaring Moon. And now I actually like Incineroar onto teams like this. I was testing the AV Incin because I know there was another tournament team that was also using like AV Incin, you know, with like Snarl, U-Turn and stuff. And that was also pretty good, but I just like Parting Shot, man. Like anytime you can just go like Fake Out and then click Tailwind, it's really, really good. Fake Out, Intimidate, double redirection here with the Ogerpon Cornerstone is really, really nice. And then just Incin is just like a really, really good balance bond right now. So I kind of like this idea. So double knockoff, you know, being able to remove key items is just another way to, you know, kind of play the team. But again, now you have like, again, this Tailwind Trick Room idea. And we have the Indeedee back here again. So that means we can afford to take off the Trick Room back on Lunala and go with Trick Room on the Indeedee over here. This is like one of our older spreads like we mentioned earlier. Just 180 to the benchmark there, 92 investment to outspeed timid Pelipper's, and then the rest can just go into like defense and stuff like that. The Koraidon more or less stays the same. So this is just another way to, you know, the different tools, different ideas besides like the Flutter Mane Chiyu stuff. I think this also works out relatively well. So let me show you a couple games with this. All right, so this one here, this is a pretty cool Miraidon Calyrex team. It has Volcarona and the Iron Valiant and also Urshifu, but look at how many flying weaknesses he's got here. So something like Roaring Moon could be pretty good here. I also like Ogerpon, just because, again, I can take advantage of the Sturdy ability. I can bop the Volcarona if he does bring it against the Koraidon there. I can bop the Calyrex if I have to. But again, I'm utilizing the second lifeline that it has over there, right? So I think just simply leading Koraidon and Ogerpon is pretty decent here. So he goes for Ferrigaf Calyrex. So a little awkward, right? No protection to set up the Trick Room. So to me, he might go like Trick Room Ferrigaf and then just go Glacial Lance with the Calyrex here. So I was surprised he didn't like tear the Calyrex. He was just willing to give me that for free. And then, you know, just now I get to bop the Calyrex, but I don't kill, but he goes for Glacial Lance here. So we live. We're down to sturdy, right? So we don't give him the boost. This is why Ogerpon is really good. And now he goes into the Miraidon here. Okay, Dazzling Gleam can kind of just pick this up here, but I would need to weaken his damage to maybe try and live. He goes to Terra Fairy. That's the correct move. Koraidon survives by the grace of God. Okay, and then CC, obviously, you know, the Terra, you know, helps him survive that. I could have went into the Calyrex again. He clicked Trick Room, which actually helps me in this case. I don't think that was the play. I think just Glacial Lance would have been fine. So now he puts me in a really, really good spot because now this is just an easy helping hand expanding force play. I know the Calyrex can resist it, but from that range and with the Indeedee and terrain, that's always just going to pick up there. So now Miraidon's in trouble here. He changes the rain back on his side, but it doesn't matter. I can just click Moongeist Beam and finish him off, right? The Wide Guard doesn't matter because we have single target moves anyway, so we don't get baited, and we kick the Moongeist Beam. So honestly, I think him clicking Trick Room just made it more favorable to us, but at the same time, you know, like, I don't like his first hit. I could have just went for the Calyrex immediately. He didn't even Terra it. Alright, yet another Calyrex Zamazenta matchup there. Chien-Pao, Amoonguss, Ursh, Tornadus. That's probably the one that I would release as a rental. That's a pretty standard, easy way to play it. But again, you know, look at the flying weaknesses to Roaring Moon there. Like Ursh, Chien-Pao, Amoonguss. We have the speed advantage there. He's got Tornadus too. But again, we have the Sun mode. Now, he can also just do like manual Rain Dance, right? If that is indeed the Water Urshifu. But I still like Instant Roaring Moon here as a lead just because we have a lot of tools, you know, to do with the Incineroar and the Roaring Moon here. So he goes with Calyrex and he goes with the Amoonguss. Good lead there. Could set up here potentially. Who knows? But Roaring Moon can do a lot against both of these, right? Especially if we can fake out the Amoonguss here. He goes into Zamazenta. Good play there. All right. There's the Protect. Good idea. All right. So he switched out the Calyrex, right? So this is just a knockoff into the Zamazenta slot, which doesn't do anything. Good turn from him. But now I don't want to get body press. I'm going to go into Lunala here. I just want to try and get rid of the Amoonguss. And he actually lives the Acrobatics. Good EVs on that Amoonguss. So whoever's playing that, good EVs there, right? So he actually body presses the Roaring Moon instead. So he doesn't go for the Instant. Very interesting. All right. So now I get to click Tailwind, right? So now I get to position myself a little bit better if the Calyrex does come in, right? So we get the special attack boost. We're +1 under Tailwind. Roaring Moon still lives. There's the Urshifu here. We can Acrobatics that thing, right? But now look at this. He's forced to Jet, right? So that's okay. He takes out the Roaring Moon, and now the Expanding Force cleans up the Urshifu too. So now it's down to Zamazenta and his Calyrex, and now we've got Koraidon and Lunala. So now we got all the restricteds. Who's winning this? And don't forget, we still have Vincent in the back. So, you know, he could protect the Zamazenta right now, right? And he actually just clicks Wide Guard instead. I don't know why he did that. He forgot. I guess I did not bring Indeedee. I have no idea why he did that. He could have just easily protected there. Moongeist Beam does over half, right? But again, you know, he's scared of clicking Astral Barrage because I have Lunala here. So he's forced to click the suboptimal move. Now Instant just wins the game, right? Because again, he can protect there. That doesn't really matter because now, you know, all we have to do is just click Wide Guard and then, you know, that's it. It doesn't even matter what he clicks anywhere after this, right? So there's the Wide Guard. He clicks the Astral. Not that it really matters, right? Even though he's +1. Because Instant is Incineroar, you can easily take that, and then we just go for the raw flavorless here. I think that at this time, this was like the AV Instant set that I was testing. But again, either way, Instant was always going to win that one-on-one matchup. All right, this last one here, this is also another variant that I'm sure you guys are familiar with already. But again, just Flutter Mane, Chiyu, and Indeedee is just a really, really good backcourt onto this Koraidon and Lunala stuff. And then you can just round it out here with Ogerpon. You can put a Ditto here. You can put Brute Bonnet here. Either way, you can even put Iron Hands here. I've seen a lot of variation here. Again, we've showed you, you know, Whimsicott over here, but I think even the Cornerstone can suffice for your needs here. But again, a lot of these teams, you know, when you play the mirror, you're gonna have 4 or 5 the same mods. Like I said, it's just all depending on that last slot, depending on how you want to play the rest of the team here. So a couple games here with this, and we'll get you guys out of here. All right, the Smeargle Calyrex stuff, I can totally see this again in regulationI. He's got Instant Fergap there. Yeah, pretty standard. He's got Terapagos there. I'm very curious as to why that one is the choice of Mons there, but Decorate is pretty interesting into Pagos there. I have to say this is actually a pretty cool team. But anyway, Indeedee Lunala looks pretty good here. Even if he leads Incineroar, as long as it doesn't have Snarl, we can just Meteor Beam it out, right? So Follow Me comes out, and we click Expanding Force. Does a lot into his Iron Hands. He forgot how Follow Me Decorate works. So now Indeedee is +2, which is kind of funny, right? Drain Punch comes out, gets a lot of recovery, but now Indeedee can actually just kill the Iron Hands with like Alluring Voice here. So there's the Wide Guard. So that's a good Wide Guard play, but he forgets that Indeedee is super strong now, and Alluring Voice just kind of cleans him up there. Pagos comes out here, so I have to get rid of the Smeargle first. So I have to use my Meteor Beam, right? So, but the Pagos doesn't even Terra, first of all, right? So, you know, good play there, you know, keeping the terrain there. So there's Terra Starstorm, removes my Indeedee. But now he goes into his Calyrex, and I get to go into Koraidon. So now we have all the restricteds on the board, but he can only Terra one of these things, and we have super effective damage into both, right? So he Terras his Pagos, he gets rid of my Sun. It doesn't really matter at this point. I don't have any Photosynthesis Mons here, so we just kill, right? I think it was just better to, you know, Terra the Calyrex in this case, right? To at least try and live and pick up the Koraidon at least, but even then, like, Lunala Terra Water was just going to resist Glacial Lance every single time, so... yeah, this one's a interesting Miraidon Kyogre team here. I guess it kind of makes sense just because you have Tailwind there. But even then, I think the Ice Rider just makes a little bit more sense there. But it's okay. So, you know, Indeedee is always going to come into these games just for terrain control. He's going with Whimsicott Ogre there, so you know what he wants to click, right? So, Koraidon's an easy switch here, just to be able to change weather. I guess I didn't need to Terra the Lunala here, because again, I can resist this stuff. But it's still okay to get a little bit more extra resistance, because now I'm weak to like Miraidon later on, right? If he comes in with it, so yeah, I guess I can be a little bit more preserving the Terra there on the Lunala, right? So we get to click Expanding Force. Now Miraidon comes in, but look at this, right? So this is where like the Water Terra wasn't really good, so I have to reposition, go back into Indeedee there, all right? And I go for CC into the Miraidon. Doesn't kill. Could have even killed the Kyogre there, but D-Gleam comes out. And at least I have everything in Expanding Force range, right? So that was the other idea. If I didn't KO, everything is in the E-Force range. I have Flutter Mane here, and now he sees that and he just kind of forfeits, right? Because again, I can pressure both the Miraidon and the Kyogre, and you know, I even have like Trick Room options after that, but I didn't even need to. I think just Flutter Mane clicking Moonblast, forcing the Miraidon out would have been okay. And then what does Kyogre do, right? You know, he could click another water move in the sun, but it's not really going to do a whole lot there, so yeah. All right, so this one, Zamazenta Luna. I don't think I've ever seen both on the same team here, but again, it kind of makes sense. You know, Zamazenta can wide guard support for Lunala, so I guess Lunala becomes the more offensive threat here. I don't know if I would play it this way. I don't know what the Archeladon is supposed to do here. Same with the Sableye. I guess you can have Prankster stuff here, but, you know, Flutter Mane Chi looks really good into everything he's got there, so I kind of want to just lead that. He's got Lunala and Zamazenta here. Honestly, just blow up the Zamazenta so he can't wide guard later, right? And he actually just wide guards right now, but that's kind of funny. So now we just blow up the Zam, see you later, and then Flutter Mane just gets free Shadow Ball damage into the Lunala over here, right? So yeah, I mean, he goes for Calm Mind. Very interesting to do that with no Fake Out or Redirection Mon, but he did it. Urshifu comes out, just go back into Koraidon. Give me the speed boost, and if he's Scarfed, then he just dies because Moonblast is strong, right? No Sash there. It's probably on Sableye. There's a Moonblast from Lunala, so I trade Koraidon for Ursh, but that's worth it, right? Because now there's no wide guard for him to be able to support his Lunala, so now this is just an easy Snarl, and he just kind of dies from here, right? So, you know, Moonblast comes out, very strong damage. And he didn't even Terra, right? So then Lunala just kind of gets cleaned up here. So the name of the game, just remove the wide guard user, and then Chiyu is looking pretty good in that end game there. All right, so just to run through the pace one more time here. So basically, this one is the Ditto variant with also Brute Bonnet there. And again, the whole idea with this is you have to make a choice there. Who's going to get the Sash? Either it's the Flutter or the Ditto here. You can still go Covert Cloak Ditto on this. It's still okay. Otherwise, you can just offer like the Shell Bell that has been used at the tournament level. That's still like okay. Then this one had the Whimsicott variant, right? The little bit more hyper offense idea with Tailwind, and then Manual Sunny Day to help you against like Tornadus Rain Dance stuff. So like this is another way to consider it. And then Trick Room is on the Indeedee instead, right? And Lunala just has Expanding Force, Moonguy Speed, Meteor Beam, Wide Guard there. Then this one, right? This is the Ursaluna idea, the one that's been most popular running around over here. You can offer this one if you like. This is the Timid Lunala idea. This one, back to Modest Lunala. This one is with Roaring Moon and Incin. Again, a little bit more balanced play instead of like the Flutter Mane Chiyu stuff. And then this last one here, again, Flutter Mane Chiyu. Indeedee, very solid 5-4. And then this last slot is up for grabs. We opted for Cornerstone here, but you can put a few options here. You can put like Ditto, Brute Bonnet, Iron Hands here. You can put Whimsicott also again if you really want to. It's just like the first idea. But lots of ideas that you can do with Lunala Koraidon here. And again, don't forget, like Raging Bolt is still like a good option to have on teams like this. Like again, it's dropped a little bit more, but again, you know, just with an Assault Vest, it's able to outbulk a lot of things and give you a little bit more support, you know, with Thunderclap and Electro Webs and whatnot. But Double Dragon sometimes feels like a little clunky. Like I know we did it here with Roaring Moon, but that's because Roaring Moon has a different role, where, you know, as opposed to something like Koraidon here. Not to say that Raging Bolt doesn't have a different role than Koraidon here, but I think, you know, just having Tailwind support for Roaring Moon here, along with Trick Room and Icy Wind, oh not Icy Wind, but again, just having the Tail Room idea is still like pretty good here, and also still taking advantage of photosynthesis, right? So you know, 5 teams here, so give these a go. Let us know how you do, and if you want to build your own squad for regulationI, we're heading into the first month now, and if you still need some help, make sure you sign up for coaching on the channel. Tier 3 sub gets you a one-on-one team building session with me, and then we can build you a team just like this, hash out the EVs step by step, and get you whatever you need for your regional tournament or ladder needs. Okay, but that's it for now, folks. We'll be back with another video in the next one. Peace out. Have a good one.